So once again, good morning or good afternoon. We are very happy you are here. I mean, our special guest today, but also our participants of this webinar. My name is Katarzyna Kopecka-Piech, and I am board member of the Polish Communication Association, responsible for international relations of this association. And I'm very happy to invite you for the presentation, lecture, and then questions and answers session with great editors of the Lexington Books publishing house, being an imprint of Rowman and Littlefield International. Jessica Tepper and Holly, sorry, because I see another name and surname of Nicolette Amstutz, of course. It's a great honor and pleasure to have you here. We are very happy we'll be able to talk to you about general things about publishing books in your publishing house, but also generally speaking in humanities and social science, because we are all interested in internalization of our research and publishing strategies. So thank you very much. I would like to remind you, I mean, all of us who are here, that this meeting is a part of the international program supporting publishing of books in such great publishing houses as Lexington Books. We propose and can co-finance publication of such books, co-funding proofreading of your books, collected editions of books prepared by you in cooperation with other media and communication researchers from abroad, from other communication associations. So please remember about these options. We are waiting for your applications. We are waiting to co-fund your books. And I think that today's meeting is a great opportunity to get to know how to do it, how to prepare your book proposal, how to cooperate with editors, how to make your publication better and better, and to find the audience outside of the country. So I don't want to take time of Nicolette and Jessica. Girls, the floor is yours. Once again, thank you very much. We really appreciate that you spend this hour with us. And if you have any questions about technical issues, please ask Mateusz. Mateusz is a co-organizer of this meeting, representing the Forum of Young Media and Communication Scholars, the part of the Polish Communication Association. Thank you very much, Mateusz, for support, for co-moderation of this meeting. And I give the floor to Jessica and to Nicolette.
Thank you so much. We're really excited to be here and to talk to you more about the publishing process with Lexington Books. Lexington Books is under Rowman and Littlefield. And so Rowman and Littlefield publishes more of the general interest books, reference works, and Lexington publishes the majority of the scholarly monographs for the company. So our books are very theory-driven, and we published revised dissertations, edited collections, and monographs, which Jessie will go into a little bit. But first, we'll introduce ourselves. My name is Nicolette Amstutz, and I am the acquiring editor for the communication list, as well as the Latin American Studies list at Lexington. And then I also oversee our editorial department.
And I'm Jessie, and I'm the Associate Acquisitions Editor for Film, Television, and Media Studies, and I've also worked a lot in the communication field with Nicolette in the past, so really excited to be here and, getting to talk with you all.
You can go to the next slide.
Oh, works perfectly. All right, so like Nicolette mentioned, there are, a few different types of scholarly books that we do publish. So if we want to move on to the next slide here, talking about the first type, this is what many people think of as the most standard type of scholarly book, the monograph. It can be single or co-authored. We have, anywhere between 1 to 3 authors typically working together to write the entirety of one book. And they'll write, like I said, the entirety of the manuscript, aside from any potential forward or afterword, which can be solicited, from an outside scholar in the field. And all of our monographs are sent out for an anonymous peer review, and it is anonymous on both ends to really make sure that there's no bias included, as much as possible when the scholarship is being evaluated. And I know that's a really important part of our publishing process, to ensure that the scholarship we're publishing is really rigorous and up to date and making a solid contribution to the field. But I also know that that's really important for a lot of authors, especially, people in academia who are looking to get tenured and that kind of thing. I know the peer review of your work is a really important aspect of publishing it. So the main goal of a monograph is it presents original research and it makes an argument that, like I said, contributes to the existing scholarship in the field, because that is our first and foremost concern when we're publishing scholarship. Is we're really looking for things that are going to advance the field of research that they're being published in and make that meaningful contribution. So in doing that, it will engage with relevant scholarship and theory through citation and a deeper level of analysis that's appropriate for a higher level scholarly audience. And then if we want to move on to the next slide, we can talk about edited collections. And this is also a really great opportunity to publish a wider and more interdisciplinary perspective on a particular topic. So just like a monograph, these can be single or co-edited. And the role of the editor or editors is to assemble, a list of contributors to write, each write different chapters from their own perspective on a particular topic. So those might take more of the format of what you might think of as a journal article versus, writing the whole manuscript yourself. And they'll often write an introduction and a conclusion to kind of tie it all together in a cohesive way, so that these different perspectives can make, one argument. And the editors work really closely with the contributors to structure the book and also to act as a peer reviewer for their individual chapters, so that each chapter can still get that level of evaluation, with the editors serving as guides for revision and improvement of the work. And like I said, this is a really great way to get an interdisciplinary analysis of a certain topic, where you can get contributors from different fields, different disciplines, different backgrounds to write from their own perspective, while still engaging with that relevant and up-to-date scholarship through citation and a deeper analysis. And then if we want to move on to the next slide, the final type of book that we publish is a revised dissertation. And these are typically solo authored by the original dissertation author. And this is a really great way, especially for newer scholars in the field, to get their work published and, take that dissertation that you've worked so hard on for so long and transform it into a monograph that's going to really contribute to the field of scholarship. And just like a monograph, these are all sent out for an anonymous peer review. And we typically ask that the dissertation is embargoed or, removed from online repositories for at least 3 years, just in order to make sure you're not competing with your own work by having the dissertation available online. And this is also a great opportunity, to significantly revise and restructure the dissertation, and make those changes that have been suggested by your dissertation committee. Eliminate the literature survey and methodology sections to incorporate them into the narrative, just to make that more cohesive narrative. Cut down on excessive quotations. Make sure that the scholarship is still up to date if it's been a little while, since you wrote your dissertation. And just to take what you've learned, since writing your dissertation and getting that feedback from your dissertation committee, and revising it into a monograph. So you might have an idea in mind for any of these types of books, but it's hard to know where to get started. It can be an intimidating process. So if we want to move on to the next slide, I can give you some more information about that. Your first step is going to be you want to speak with an acquisitions editor. So you guys already have a head start on this because you're, getting to hear from us now. But your acquisitions editor is going to be your greatest ally in this pursuit. So, if you're interested in publishing a scholarly book, that's the first step, is to reach out to an acquisitions editor in your field. A lot of people might be unsure about this because, they don't want to take up anybody's time or cause any trouble, but that's what we're here for. We're here to help and to give feedback and to get, some really great scholarship published in the field. So the first steps are, consider which publishing companies you are familiar with, or, do some research to find some new publishing companies if you're not familiar with too many, and see, what might be the best fit for you. Look at the different types of books that they publish and see if it's similar to what your goal would be. And you can usually find the acquisitions editor for your field, through the company's directory or through searching online. And, you just want to reach out to them, say, I'm interested in working on a book, even if you don't know where to start. So you just want to ask them some questions about their publishing process and discuss your book idea so that you can get feedback and see if their company and their list might be the best fit for your research. And a lot of people ask me, what do other people ask? What should I be asking, when I'm thinking about writing a proposal or when I'm thinking about signing a contract? So your main concern is, the company's target audience. Are they looking to target the same audience you're looking to target? So, we target, higher level scholars and practitioners in the field. With, higher level graduate courses sometimes thrown into the mix there. So if that's not if your goal was to, publish a general interest book, that might not be the best fit. So that's an important thing to know. And then other things that will help you in planning your book. What is the typical length of the books? What is the price range of your books? What kind of timeline should I have in mind for writing the book? Will my work be peer reviewed, and will I have the chance to revise it? Because like I said, I know that's really important for a lot of scholars and you don't want to miss out on that. And then a question I get a lot is there any financial obligation for me when publishing with you, as the author? And I always say just flat out, the answer is no. You don't have to pay us anything to publish your book. And I know a lot of people, there are some other companies that do require that. So that's a really good thing to know up front, whether or not that'll be required of you. And if Nicolette wants to kind of talk a little bit more about our publishing process.
Yeah, and I'll chime in too with some of those answers to those questions that Jessie provided on the PowerPoint in regards to Lexington Books. The typical length of our books is usually around 70,000 to 90,000 words. The absolute minimum is 50,000 words, and the absolute maximum is 120,000 words. In terms of price range, our hardcover books usually average around like $90 to $95, and then we just implemented some new ebook pricing, and so our ebook prices are closer to the price of our paperback. So they're around, $45 to $50. Lexington, when we publish a book, we publish it simultaneously as a hardcover and ebook, with the possibility of a paperback about 18 months after initial publication. The schedule and what a publisher publishes initially really varies from publisher to publisher. Sometimes we can release a paperback sooner than that 18 months if, say, you're using it for a course that you're teaching or something like that. So that would be something that if you are using it in a course, definitely mention that in your proposal because that's very helpful to know up front. We'll talk more, the typical publishing timeline. When we receive a proposal from someone, we like to see a full draft of the manuscript within 18 months of submission of the proposal. Given everything that's going on, we've been a lot more flexible with that timeline. So even if your project's a little further out, don't hesitate in submitting a proposal, even if it doesn't line completely up with that timeline. We'll go into the peer review process a little later on, so I'll hold off on that, and let's go to the next slide, please. So this just kind of gives you a sense of the publishing process with Lexington. The first step is a proposal. Upon submission of a proposal, say you submit it to Jesse or you submit it to me, we would review it. We would be in touch if we have any questions or hesitations about the book, and then we would move forward in presenting it to Lexington's editorial board, which is comprised of all the other editors and our marketing team. And we would have a decision on whether or not we want to offer you a contract for your book within 3 to 4 weeks. So you don't have to wait months on end for that. And then say we were to offer you a contract, the next step would be for you to take however long you need to write that finish the full draft of the manuscript. And like I said previously, we usually see people take up to 18 months on that, and then we'd send it out for peer review. That usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on what time of the year it is. Then you would get a chance to revise. And then once you submit the final, it goes into production, and then it's published. I'll go into a little bit more depth about the timeline for the later half of that in the next slide. So the first step, writing your proposal. This varies publisher to publisher. Some publishers require a full draft of the manuscript when you submit your proposal. Lexington does not. We will accept a proposal with your CV and 1 or 2 sample chapters or writing samples. So you can send conference papers or journal articles that you are going to adapt to be a chapter in the book. If you wish to include previously published material in your book, we like to see that no more than 25% of the proposed book has been previously published. That will also vary from publisher to publisher, but that's something to keep in mind. And then just some things to keep in mind while you're writing your proposal. Who is your target audience? And again, going back to what Jesse said, does that line up with the publisher that you're submitting the proposal to? And if not, how can you adapt your book project to fit that target audience if you are really set on trying to work with that publisher? We really focus on, okay, what argument is the author making? Does this make a scholarly contribution to the field? So that's something we'll look at very closely in your proposal. But something that Jesse and I really like to stress is that we are very open to, and as well as all the editors at Lexington, very open to seeing drafts of your proposal as you're working on it. You can send us bits and pieces of it. This can be a conversation back and forth. We don't want you to think that once you submit your proposal, it's going directly to the board. We'll have a conversation about it if we have any concerns, so that when Jesse and I go to the board, hopefully we feel really confident that we will be able to secure a contract for your book project. And then we'll be in touch, within 3 to 4 weeks with a decision on whether or not we have a contract offer for your book project. Next slide, please. So say we offer you a contract and you accept it. The next step would be to start working on the full draft of your manuscript. If we offered you a contract for a revised version of your dissertation, we have guidelines that go into how you can turn it from a monograph or from a dissertation into a monograph. And some of the suggestions with that are, getting rid of the literature review and chapter and incorporating that throughout the text, maybe having more of that in one of the initial chapters, getting rid of your methodology chapter and condensing that a little bit and having that in one of the initial chapters as well. but we can really guide you along that process. We have guides on that. We have books that we can share with you that make suggestions on what you can do. And then if you're just working on a monograph, then you will, we're happy to take looks at the at the manuscript files, as you're working on it. This is one of the hardest parts of the process, because you're sending it out to be reviewed and evaluated by a scholar in the field. So don't worry, it isn't going to be perfect. We really encourage people to submit it, even if they're still, revising one chapter here or there a little bit, because then you can just separate yourself from it while it's out for peer review and see, how the reviewer responds to it, and revise after it comes back from the peer review. That process usually takes about 6 to 8 weeks, as I mentioned, but it really depends on what time of year it is, regarding like how quickly we can secure a review. Sometimes people find that as they're working on their manuscript, they want to change the scope of it or structure, and that might differ from what you outlined in the proposal. That's typically okay. You would just want to discuss it with your editor and come up with a plan for the new angle. Make sure it still aligns with our target audience. Most of our books are geared towards the grad level and above, though we have published some titles that are more a synthesis on a topic for the undergrad level. Next slide, please. And so once you submit that first draft, then it's time for peer review. As Jesse mentioned, we want to send it to someone that wouldn't be able to recognize your work, but is a scholar in the field who would be able to comment at length on your draft. And we send a reviewer's guide to the reviewer that has questions, about the scholarship and the sources that you cite in your book, and the argument and the organization. But if there's something that you've really been struggling with in your manuscript, feel free to let us know, and we can add additional questions and have the reviewer comment on that in more detail. Maybe you're struggling with a section of chapter 1, or you need some more guidance on the conclusion. We can definitely get you direct feedback on those. If you let us know what you're struggling with, we'll ask the reviewer. And this is a great chance. We really do encourage authors to step away from the manuscript at least for 6 to 8 weeks while it's out for review, because then you come back to it and you see it in, with fresh eyes to make revisions, and we find that, is really helpful for a lot of people. And then the bottom of the slide just, reiterates that we want a reviewer that's well established in the field, someone that you don't have a close personal or professional relationship, and someone who is not likely to recognize your work. Next slide, please. And then so once we get the peer reviewers' feedback back, Jesse and I read over it. We will then reach out to the author with, our take on the review. What do we think are the most important revisions to be made? What do we want to hear the author's thoughts on? We're really open to seeing, what revisions do you want to make and what revisions do you not want to make? We'll talk you through that. And we give you a few days once we send you the reviewer's comments to look them over and make a revision plan that works for you. We don't have, set firm deadlines for when you need to turn in a revised manuscript. So we really work with your schedule. And I know some authors, they'll get a review back and they might be overwhelmed thinking that they have to make, every revision a reviewer suggests, and that is not the case. We really want to hear what you agree with that the reviewer said, what you don't agree with, and we'll go from there. And typically, when we receive a positive peer review and the changes that the author is going to make are minimal, an author might take up to a few weeks to a couple months to revise the manuscript and submit the final. If the revisions are more substantial in nature, sometimes that can take several months to even a year, and at that point, we might send the manuscript out for a second review. I know a lot of authors are worried that if the review comes back negative, we will cancel the project. That is not typically the case. We work with our authors to help them improve the manuscript and get it out for a second review in the hopes that that will come back more positive after substantial revisions are made and we can move forward with publication. Next slide, please. And then Jesse is going to talk about production and printing.
All right, so, once you've submitted the final manuscript, Nicolette, I think there's an echo. Okay. Once you submit the final manuscript, you've made all your revisions, and you're happy with the final product. Your editor, will review everything, make sure we have all the materials that we need, and we will send your project to production. We've really been able to streamline our internal production processes so that they really only take around 4 to 5 months on average. And, some of what you can expect is that you'll be assigned a production editor to work with you throughout the process, but you'll still also be working with your acquisitions editor on some parts of your book's production, including, looking at the cover, making sure, everything is included on the cover, spelled correctly, that kind of thing. So you'll still remain in contact with both the acquisitions editor and the production editor as your team throughout production. Your manuscript will be professionally typeset and proofread, by our production staff. And in some cases, especially in cases where we are publishing with authors who are not based in the US and whose first language isn't English, we do work with a lot of international authors. So we can offer a copy edit in those cases instead of just a proofread. So we definitely are able to work with you on that. And then the only part of production that you would be responsible for at all is the index. We have a lot of authors who choose to create the index themselves. While they're writing, they have a list of index terms in mind to kind of give them a head start. And then once the pages are typeset, then they can compile the index with the correct page numbers. But we also have a lot of authors who choose to hire a freelance indexer, either through funding from their university or, their own funding. And we do have a list of freelance indexers that are familiar with our practices and we work with quite often that we can we can give you their contact information and help facilitate that process. One thing that I know a lot of our authors are really happy about is that you do have input on the cover design of your book. We have over 60 different cover template options for pretty much any look that you could be going for. We also have an extensive membership with Getty Images to give authors access to a lot of different stock images that they can use, but they're also free to use their own images, provided that they have the rights and or the permission to do so. So there are definitely a lot of options there, and we actually do get a lot of compliments on our books when we take them to conferences. Say, that looks really, cool and interesting for a scholarly book. So we try to really work with you there, and you or your editor will secure endorsement blurbs for the back cover and our website, and that's something that you can work together on. And, that just, of course, adds a little bit of credence to your book by getting, endorsements from experts in the field. So as Nicolette previously said, our books are released in hardcover and ebook simultaneously, and there's the potential of a delayed paperback later down the line. which is decided closer to that time. And that delay also serves as a great way to, put your book back in, the public eye, so to speak, once interest might have been waning, after a year to a year and a half. You can then re-release it in a paperback with renewed interest. So that's a really great benefit of the delayed paperback process. And then if we want to move on to the next slide, we could talk about, publication and marketing. Once production has been completed and everything's been finalized by you and your editor, your book will officially be published. That's the most exciting part. And we are able to promote our books through several different channels. We send advanced book information to wholesalers and libraries for all of our books to encourage pre-orders, which will be available for usually at least a couple of months before your book is officially published. As I said before, we usually, in normal times, go to a lot of in-person academic conferences, and we definitely have a sizable presence there with our own booth usually, and we display a lot of our new titles usually from the past 2 years there in both hardcover and paperback. And that's a great way for your book to get attention from, other scholars in your field, especially when they see the great covers. And then we also issue catalogs for every field, throughout the year, and those are sent by direct mail to libraries and professors. And we've also been spending more time on digital marketing for our catalogs as well. They're all available on our website to look at in PDF format. So those are really accessible to anyone who might be interested. We send review copies of your book once it's published. We send all of our books to Choice for their consideration, and also a list of journals in your discipline that you provide in order to tailor it as closely as possible to your book and where it will get the best interest. And we also create promotional flyers and offer a discount code for 30% off the list price of your book for the first year of its publication, just to make it more accessible for the individual consumer, along with our new lower ebook prices. We, like I said, we've been giving a lot more energy to digital marketing campaigns and newsletters. We have chapter showcases that we put out for every discipline that we've been doing for the past year or so. And that gives, potential authors and potential customers an idea of, the type of books that we publish, and a little excerpt of that. And we'll also, if your book gets any reviews or you do any interviews, events, or any other mentions of your book, we'll promote that on our social media accounts. And we do have international distribution and marketing through our London office. And like I said, we work with a lot of international authors as well. So, your book is not just going to be marketed in the US. And then, that really sums up the publication and marketing process, unless Nicolette has anything to add. You're muted.
All right. I was going to add one thing about the marketing process. A lot of our books are interdisciplinary in nature, and one thing we really pride ourselves on at Lexington is all of the editors work really collaboratively when we're just trying to decide what books to bring to what conferences and include in what catalogs. So when I attended NCA in 2019 for the last time in person, I had books from the sociology list, the political science list, international relations list, cultural studies, etc. And same goes with those conferences. We had a lot of our communication and media studies books there if they were applicable. So we really try to broaden the reach of your book across disciplines if it warrants it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation and for giving us general information about the idea how to prepare the book proposal, how to prepare a book and cooperate with you. Could you give us more tips, more very concrete information what is the most important thing when we are preparing the book proposal to to get your attention, to convince you that the book might be really interesting, well prepared, and correct, of course, according to methodology, everything. How to write this proposal, especially when we have never done it before.
Yeah, so when we're reviewing a proposal, we really try to look for a strong argument of the book. And I'll read through the table of contents. We really like to see an annotated table of contents, which has a summary of each of the chapters and how that chapter contributes to the larger argument. So when Jesse and I are reviewing a proposal, we really want to see that it looks like each chapter is speaking to that larger argument and it's being built upon chapter to chapter. When we're looking at the sample chapter, we really want to see that you're putting your own voice in there. A lot of times if someone's revising a dissertation, it's a lot of direct quotes. So we really like to see that, that the direct quotes are minimized and that you are really engaging with the scholarship in the field and putting your own voice there. Jesse, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that we're looking for is, like Nicolette said, to clearly state your argument and, explain why this argument is important and explain, like I said, the contribution it's making to the field, because although we are, a commercial press, we are still a scholarly press first and foremost. So our mission is to really publish scholarship that's going to advance the field that it's being published within. So not just stating what the argument is, but how it's different from other arguments being made, or, if it is new, if it's, something that you haven't really seen much research done on, where are its origins and, what is it building off of? So yeah, and it's not so much about, having to get our attention. We try to make it, I'd like to stress that we try to make it a really collaborative process and make it as least intimidating as possible, because at the end of the day, you're just emailing with a person. You're just emailing me or emailing Nicolette, and if you have questions about something in your proposal, or you submit it and something were to be missing, it's more of a discussion. It's not so black and white. So we just try to stress that it is intimidating, especially if you haven't written a book proposal before, but just communication is key.
Yeah, and we work with a lot of first-time authors and a lot of authors that, maybe this is their fourth book project or more. And no matter who we're working with, we really break up the process into manageable chunks, so you always know, what's ahead. But I feel like we really try to make it as, as not stressful as possible, and just keeping you informed of where we are in the process. One thing we also like to see in the proposal is there's a question about competing books. So we definitely want to see that, your book is doing something different than the other books in the field on that topic. And so in that section, you can really speak to how your research builds upon that or goes in a new direction, which is something that we will pay close attention to as well.
Yeah, and another thing that I just wanted to add is, when you look at our proposal guidelines, I included a link here, and I can also send you the document to distribute if you'd like. They're very straightforward. It's the CV, the sample chapters or writing samples, and then the prospectus, which is about 14 or so questions that are all, very straightforward. So I just, like to stress, you don't have to worry too much about how long the proposal is or what format it's in. It doesn't have to look fancy or flashy or anything like that. As long as the information that we're looking for is there, that's just the first and foremost concern.
And one thing I wanted to mention, since this differs from publisher to publisher, is that you will notice if you look on our website that some books are in a series. At Lexington, a book does not have to be in a series to be given a contract. So majority of our books are standalone books that are not in a series. And if you submit your proposal and we think it would be a good fit for the series, we have, we would let you know and ask if you wanted it to be included in that series.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to encourage all participants to ask questions. If you prefer, you can use chat and write down your questions there, or you can turn on your microphone or even camera if you wish, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. My other question is about edited collections. So the difference between other books and edited collections and responsibility of the editors of this book. What are the main difference at each stage? I mean, preparing proposal, then the whole process of production of the book, especially review and this, cooperation with number of authors usually. Do you have any kind of advice here, suggestions how to start this, how to follow the rules to make it in the best way?
Yes, so the edited collection proposal guidelines are the same ones as the regular guidelines that Jesse included in the PowerPoint. One thing that would differ, though, is that an editor of a collection would ideally, we like to see that you have a tentative list of contributors included in the proposal, as well as a tentative list of chapter topics or even abstracts for each chapter. Most edited collection proposals we receive have all of that information, but we know it might change. A contributor might drop out, and you might replace that contributor with someone else. There's a smaller number of edited collection proposals where maybe they only have 3 out of 10 contributors solidified, and they have very general chapter topics they list in the proposal. So that is another option, but we would definitely want to see, if we decide to offer you a contract with that minimal information, we would want to see the contributor list once you had that more solidified. We do, for edited collections, like to see that all of the contributors or the majority of the contributors have their PhD. It is all right if there's a couple that do not, or maybe they have a co-author who has their PhD on the chapter. We would just ask that the editor of the collection, if it is a PhD candidate, look over those chapters very closely. In terms of the proposal, while there are those 2 options, you can do a call for chapters before you submit the proposal or after. We typically like to see the call for proposals done before, so we just have a better sense of what the edited collection is going to look like.
Yeah, and then throughout, the writing process and the production process, there is definitely a different level of involvement between a monograph where, you're writing the whole manuscript yourself and an edited collection where maybe you're only writing 1 chapter. But so the editor in these cases is expected to, work closely with all of the contributors, like I said before, kind of act as that peer reviewer, going over every chapter, offering suggestions for revision, reviewing it again, that kind of thing. And the editor will also be, or the editor of the collection will also be the main point of contact for the project with the acquisitions editor. So, contributors wouldn't be individually emailing the acquisitions editor. We would email the editor of the collection, and then you'd kind of distribute that information to the contributors as necessary. And that goes for, while you're writing the manuscript and also while we're in the production process. So it's more about the editor acting as that kind of coordinator in that case, with all of the other authors. So, it's just a different kind of role that you're playing there. And then, of course, during the production process, it's also expected that for all of the page proofs, you send each contributor their chapter for them to review, and you don't make changes to their chapters without their consent. Yeah, it's just more about, you're, like I said, coordinating these chapters, you're kind of working on the structure of the book, what order the chapter should be in to make it as cohesive as possible, while also tying it together with your own chapter or introduction and conclusion, that kind of thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for all explanations. And now we are waiting for questions from the audience. We have a lot of people here. Guys, please use this opportunity to ask questions, to discuss anything which might be difficult, or yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to explain things.
Yeah, and of course, I also just wanted to say both of our email addresses should be on that first slide of the presentation. So if anybody is either more comfortable asking their questions over email, or you just think of questions later, you're always more than welcome to send either or both of us an email, and we're more than happy to address or explain anything further in detail.
Yeah, and we would be happy to set up, individual phone calls or, individual Zoom calls or video chats as well, if someone has a book project that they want to move forward on.
Great, thank you very much. Let's wait a few seconds if any questions appear in the chat.
So maybe if I could, I've got just one simple question.
Sure.
I'm thinking that does the presence of graphics, tables, pictures, diagrams, and their quantity have influenced the chance of successful publication? So I mean, whether too much graphic content can be a reason for not publishing, or maybe it does not have any influence. How is it?
So that is a question that we ask in the proposal, and we typically like to see no more than 20 to 30 non-textual elements, and that would include, tables, figures, photos. And with those 20 or 30, we would really want them to be integral to the book's argument, if you decide to include, that many. If we thought there would be an issue with how many you plan to include, we would definitely, have a conversation with you about that before we presented your project to Lexington's board. There's also options that instead of scattering the images throughout, we could have them in a photo spread gathered somewhere. We also have an additional resources tab on a book's page on our website, and we could include additional images that weren't included in the book on that tab. Our images would appear in black and white in the hardcover book, in the paperback if we decided to do one, but they would appear in color in the ebook. So we definitely make exceptions for, if your book really warrants visual elements, then we could possibly go over that, 20 to 30 range. But that's typically where we like to keep it at the very most.
Yeah, and just another thing to keep in mind when you're including images, and something that you really want to think about ahead of time is are they your own images? Are they images you found online? Depending on the source, you might not have the rights to reprint that photo or graph or, et cetera, in a book. So you'd want to keep in mind and be proactive about, if the rights to the photo belong to somebody else, you'd have to contact them and ask for their permission, and we'd need a record of that permission. So that's something that you'd want to be, proactive about so that it doesn't slow down the process later on.
Yeah, because permissions is definitely a timely time-consuming part of the process. So we really encourage authors to get started on that as soon as possible, once they have a clear sense of what images they want to include in the book.
Thank you.
Yeah, when we are talking about agreements, permissions, Let's say something about other permissions we have to collect to publish a book, because it depends on law in each country. And for example, in the US, you have to get permissions from all your informants. Am I right? To be included, for example, quotations from their statements or interviews to be included in the book should be confirmed by this statement that they agreed to decide it. Am I right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
yes, so we do require permissions for all interviewees. If you cannot obtain permission for anyone, we ask that you just change all of the identifying features and in the text so they would not be recognized.
Are there any other kind of permissions we have to deliver, we have to collect during our work? Any other things according to the law regulations?
Yeah, so some other cases where you might need permissions, if you want to quote more than 500 words from any one source, you would need permission in order to do so. In those cases, it's typically easier to reduce the amount of quotations versus getting permission. You would also need permission if you want to include any previously published information. Say you want to take one of your journal articles that's been published and turn it into a chapter, you would just need to get permission from the journal to reprint the chapter. But typically in those cases, they are happy to lend permission to the author in most cases. And then slightly different from permission, but for all edited collections, one of the things that you'll need to gather and coordinate as the editor is contributor consent forms for each person who has written a chapter or who has co-written a chapter, just stating that they understand the terms of the agreement and they consent to including their chapter. Since the original contract is just signed with, the editor and the publishing company, we do need written consent from each contributor as well. So those are most of the cases I'd say you would need permission, but if you have anything to add, Nicolette.
No, that covers it. Or do you want to talk about like film stills at all or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of goes along with images, but so typically, since I do, coordinate the film and media studies list, that does come up quite a bit. And in order to use any, promotional film stills that have been released by the production company, you would need permission, and they would also most likely charge you money. And so, a way to include some frames of the film as images are to, to capture your own screenshots of the movie while you're streaming it or, playing it on your computer. You can capture a screenshot, and that allows it to be used under fair use.
Thanks a lot. We have a question in chat. In the chat, probably is it a question or how long time? Yeah, you can read the question if you wish. The question is how long does usually take all the publication process from the time of sending the proposal? Yeah, this is the first question.
So that typically depends on how much time an author needs to both finish the draft of the manuscript and then revise after. In the past, we have published books like in a year and a half before, if the author, when they submit the proposal, is much further along in the process. But the production phase takes about, 4 to 5 months, and then the peer review process takes about 6 to 8 months. And
6 to 8 weeks.
Or 6 to 8 weeks, sorry. And then the proposal review usually takes about 3 to 4. So the only other, timelines in there would be how long the author needs to finish the draft of the manuscript and then how long after to revise.
Okay, thanks. There is another question. how the number of book proposals has changed over the last year due to the COVID-19 situation, decreased or increased?
So yes, we have definitely seen a decrease in proposals just because a lot of people's research has been on hold, or they're dealing with other things that are going on in their life at that moment. We have started to see a slight uptick now that some individuals are able to return or do part of their research again. Jesse, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would just say also contributing to that is kind of, the uncertainty of everything. So it can be hard to plan for, a year from now when things have been changing so much. And that's why, like we stressed earlier, especially during, COVID-19, we have been a lot more flexible when it comes to deadlines. Of course, if you say, I'll be able to deliver the draft in 18 months, but of course, if something were to happen in the meantime that, you would need an extension later on or anything like that, we're more than happy to work with you. And, all of our editors are extremely understanding when it comes to, negotiating deadlines and just remaining flexible as long as that communication is there.
So I wouldn't hesitate at all in submitting a proposal if you aren't 100% sure that you can, have a draft within 18 months. Like Jessica said, we're very, very flexible on that, especially, given everything that's going on. And we want to help you get your research out there. And I know sometimes, individuals need a book project contract to get a sabbatical or tenure or something like that. So, if you want to submit a book proposal a little bit earlier in hopes that we can, provide a letter for tenure or for a sabbatical application, we're happy to do that.
Okay, so, but also as we can expect, reviewers also need sometimes more time because of their duties, because of their situation. So as I observe in our media and communication scholar environment, some things take longer than usual now.
Yes. I haven't seen like a constant trend with that. Some people are submitting the reviews super quickly to us, even, earlier than the deadline, and some are requesting extensions for the reviews, but we will always keep our authors up to date on any reviewer delays. So you can plan in your schedule, like when you might be able to start revising the text.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there are 2 minutes left, but as I see, one person is writing a comment, so let it be the last question. And as our guest said, you can ask questions using email or other channels of communication. Yes, so there are many thanks to you.
Thank you all for joining. We really enjoyed this, and like Jesse and I said, if you have any questions or hesitations, please don't hesitate to reach out to Jesse or me. We're happy to talk to you in more depth about anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we really appreciate this time spent with you and all those information delivered to us, or all tips. And we really hope that Polish media and communication scholars will be present abroad and will cooperate with you, especially with Lexington Books and Publishing House, but also I believe that this meeting and this program we propose is also a good, well support for researchers. So once again, just like at the beginning of our meeting, guys, take a look on the website of the Polish Communication Association to check how we might support you further with your work, with your manuscripts, especially edited collections, because we have a small grants program and we can support you in this. So don't hesitate to contact us and use this opportunity. And because the time is over, I would like to thank you very, very much, both our guests, Nicolette and Jessica. Thank you for for this opportunity. Thank you for your time, for your thoughts, and we hope we'll be in touch and we will have a chance to cooperate sooner or later.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
It was great being here.
We appreciate you all giving us some of your time as well. I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you very much. Take care. Be safe and be well.
You too.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Very much. And thank you for coming here and being with us. Thank you.
Absolutely.